Hi everyone, welcome to session number 39. This is continuation of last session, session 38, which was an introduction for NMR, the basic principles and the basic alarmer frequency and population, energy level population, etc. So here we will start with chemical shift, a very important concept or a very important parameter which will determine the position of any nuclear. So please note that whatever we discuss, it is restricted to proton NMR, though it is same for other NMR, but our all discussion, whatever that chemical shift, all these things we will discuss. Delta ppm, what we get, it's all about proton NMR. Okay, chemical shift. In the last session number 38, we have seen that there will be separation of energy levels, and energy level separation increases with the increase in the frequency of external magnetic field. So if that is the case, see, each one will show different peak or different signal with a different frequency, external magnetic field. Okay, if external magnetic field changes, so every time that peak also changes, I mean the position of peak also changes, because resonance frequency will change. Okay, every time resonance frequency will change, now NMR there will be change, so it won't be constant. So in order to avoid this problem, they have introduced some the important parameter that is called the chemical shift. So the chemical shift is the frequency absorbed electromagnetic radiation by sample in Hertz minus frequency absorbed by TMS divided by spectrometer frequency in megahertz. So please note that here a standard is chosen, that is TMS, tetramethylsilane. So I can show you the structure of tetramethylsilane here. This is a standard which is used in NMR. Because of so many methyl group, all these methyl are electron donating, and again silicon is an electron donating. Because of these groups, these all protons are highly shielded. I'll come to that shielded and deshielding part. At this stage, you just note that they are highly shielded, and that's why they appear at very low frequency. Okay. So this is what the TMS that one appears, that is always taken as 0. Okay, I mean the absorption, what is the frequency which is absorbed is very high. So delta ppm for TMS is considered 0. So frequency of absorption, if you consider for them, it is always set 0. And the chemical shift, when you calculate this minus this, suppose you want to calculate for a particular proton, frequency of that minus that of TMS, which is always 0, divided by spectrometer frequency in megahertz. Spectrometer frequency means what? It is always in megahertz most of the time, 300 megahertz, 200 megahertz, like that. You can see that instrumentation part, this is one Bruker instrument, which even I also work with. A very good instrument, Bruker NMR, 400 megahertz or 600 megahertz NMR instrument. If you have, it works fantastic. Okay, even sample holder is everything is automated, so you just have to keep the sample in your number, and everything goes automatically. Only thing is, every 6 months there will be change of helium, and every week you have to change nitrogen. So these are the inner part. You can see it here, magnet, very strong magnet, and this is compressor, air lift. It takes it up. Sample you keep in the inside the magnet probe, and liquid helium comes immediately after that. A very low temperature has to be maintained, as I already told in the last session. And the liquid nitrogen, to keep the liquid helium intact, liquid nitrogen is filled. Then vacuum chamber, then air lift, nitrogen ports. These are to fill the nitrogen, and helium ports. So this is what the instrument is. So it should be kept in, this is console, you can see it here, to control this. So you regulate everything through this, and very good AC room you need. So I mean, basically this is what the spectrometer is. You can go through that in the study material in detail. So usually what you do, the two things you should maintain. One is changing magnetic field, another one is changing radio frequency. These are the two things you have to maintain, and you keep the sample. Okay, usually radio frequency is kept constant and magnetic field is kept changing. You can do both the way, but what happens, our instrument is set 300 megahertz, 400 megahertz, 500 megahertz, like that. So we don't change the magnetic field. Magnetic field radiation is kept constant and radio frequency is continuously changed. That is one way. So you can do, otherwise what you can do, that magnetic field you can keep on changing, like you can rotate it. Then the radio frequency is kept constant. That is this is the another option. So it depends on the instrument. Specific magnetic field strengths are generation. This you can read. I mean, in the study material also you can read. I don't go through that in detail. So the basic components. This is the solvent tube. You make a solvent in some solvent, like the sample. Suppose you want to record NMR for a particular sample. You have prepared some sample, heterocyclic compound, something. You have to dissolve in some solvent like CdCl3, D2O, DMSO, D6. Remember, a deuterated solvent is used because solvent should not show any proton NMR. That's why you are taking deuterium. So of course it is. You can ask whether deuterium is inactive in NMR. No, deuterium is active, but it doesn't come at the proton place. And splitting pattern is totally different. That's why. So you keep the sample, up to 3/4 of this. So you dissolve in some suitable deuterated solvent, and you put in this one of the tubes and keep the tube here. You have to place the tube here. That's what. That's all you have to do, and the rest all instrument will do. Remember, not too much sample. 2 to 3 mg is the standard. If it is not soluble, you can add a little bit more. Otherwise, 2 to 3 mg sample. And TMS is most of the time, TMS you don't have to add from the top. The standard, is already dissolved in this CdCl3, D2O, DMSO, D6. This NMR solvents, when you purchase, they already have added this standard and stabilized that. So you don't have to add from the top. So chemical shifting, that is delta, which is measured in terms of ppm. Okay, there are several factors which affect the chemical shift. That is electron density around the nucleus, hybridization of the atoms in node, acidic and excitable protons. So these one or two things you should keep in mind before going ahead. There is something called induced magnetic field. When nuclei are excited by an external applied field, the electrons surrounding the nuclei produce individual magnetic field that can oppose the applied field. Okay. See, remember, now nuclei is there at the center of an atom, and it produces magnetic field, and it produces, either they oppose the magnetic field or they go in align with the magnetic field. In a similar way, there are electrons surrounding the nucleus. Now these electrons also produce magnetic field because they are already having electric field, right? So this magnetic field, most of the time, it can oppose the applied magnetic field. Okay, because of this, if the electron density is higher, then what happens? The inner part of the nucleus is getting shielded. Now what do you mean by shielding? So what do you mean by shielding? A shielding means that induced magnetic field. Induced magnetic field is what? The magnetic field which is created by the electrons surrounding the nucleus. Okay. This shielding effect is produced by induced magnetic field. This magnetic field will oppose the applied magnetic field. Then what happens? The center one, okay, whatever that nuclei is there, that is getting shielded. The magnetic field actually experienced by the center one is lower than what we have applied because of this external shielding effect, or the opposition by induced magnetic field. Now what happens if the amount of magnetic field experienced by the nucleus at the center is lower than what you have applied, then the frequency required for absorption is also lower. Then what happens? It will shift to right side. This will go to the right side. I will explain it in a different way. Now see, first you see shielding and de-shielding. See, shielding means what? If there are electron donating groups, there is an electron cloud surrounding the nucleus, then if the magnetic field produced by it, that is induced magnetic field, is anti-parallel to the applied one, then what happens? That is called shielding. Net magnetic field experienced by the center is lesser than what you have applied. But if it is on the other way, okay, if it is magnetic field aligned with the external field, if it is in the same direction of the external field, it can happen both the way. Okay, if the electron cloud or density is lower, then what can happen? If electron withdrawing groups are there, then the magnetic field produced by this will enhance or will be aligned with the external magnetic field. Net magnetic field experienced by the nucleus will be higher than what you have applied. Then correspondingly frequency of absorption will also increase and delta will also increase. That will go to downfield. Okay, this is what you see here. Effect on chemical shift because of shielding and de-shielding. Shielded will go upfield, this is upfield, lower frequency, and de-shielded will go downfield, higher frequency, and these are something unaffected which remain as such. You can read in the study material, I have provided in detail. So that shielding, and de-shielding, and also this is you have seen how that affects chemical shift. Chemical shift is totally changed because of shielding and de-shielding. And another important factor which governs chemical shift is hybridization. So hybridization, if it is sp, sp square, sp3, they show different chemical shift. It is mainly because of anisotropic effect. I will come to that later. The sp square hybridized will go downfield, sp hybridized will be somewhere here, and sp3 hybridized will be somewhere here. Okay, actually you can think that sp hybridized should go most downfield, but there is something new effect, that is anisotropic effect. If not, what happens? If you don't consider it for carbon, then in most of the cases, as it is getting sp hybridized, it will go to downfield. Just to keep in mind, the electron density around the nucleus is going decrease. Okay, if the electron density goes on decrease, then what happens? It will experience downfield, it will experience de-shielding. That's it. So acid and exchangeable protons. So this will also affect chemical shift. So the protons which show hydrogen bonding can show variable frequency over a wide range. Because of hydrogen bonding, now it is getting more and more de-shielded. That's why it can go bit downfield. Okay, so you can see here acid proton, so that comes 10 to 12, phenolic protons come 4 to 7, alcohols come something around 0.5 to 5. It varies, it doesn't come at the particular position, because one thing, it will be bit broader. I already explained in the last few sessions, because the hydrogen bonding is not that constant, it varies, it is not same for all the molecules. One thing. Second thing, there will be change, there will be breaking of the bond and the formation of hydrogen bond, more and more bond, that's why. And another thing is, it doesn't remain at one particular position because it depends on various factors, including one temperature. Now we'll come to anisotropic effect in alkenes, alkynes and aldehydes and aromatic compounds. And because of anisotropic effect, remember, alkenes show more downfield, followed by alkynes, then alkanes. Okay, now if you consider this benzene ring, how anisotropic effect works. See, anisotropic effect is because of ring electrons, okay, or pi electrons, so which produce induced magnetic field, either in the direction of the applied magnetic field or opposing the applied magnetic field. Now if it is in the direction of the magnetic field, then the proton will be de-shielded. If it is opposing the applied magnetic field, then proton will be shielded. This is what you have to remember. Now in case of benzene ring, you can see this the induced magnetic field in this region, so it is in the direction of the applied magnetic field, but inside it is in the opposite direction of the applied magnetic field. So here what happens, the net magnetic field experienced by these protons, whichever is going peripheral outside, will be higher than what you have applied. So this plus this. So now what happens, if the experienced magnetic field is higher, so corresponding frequency will also be higher, delta ppm will shift to downfield, so it will increase. So similar things you will notice in case of aldehyde also, but in alkyne you see here what happens, this region it will produce minus, in this region it will produce plus. So what happens, the net field experienced by this, okay, in this region it will be lower magnetic field because it will be in the opposite direction. But in case of carbonyl, this will be higher, so it will show higher magnetic field, the one which is experienced by this. So because of that, aldehyde and alkenes will go downfield, but alkyne will go upfield. Okay. So you can see it in this diagram more clearly. Magnetic field induction in case of alkenes, this area is shielded, this area is de-shielded. So protons fall in the area of de-shielding. Okay. So they are getting downfield experience, or delta ppm will increase. So this is in the case of alkynes. This one is in the case of alkynes. The one which is in the line, they are getting shielded. Here they are getting de-shielded. So because protons will fall here, they are getting shielded. So this is getting upfield. So this is magnetic field direction. This is what happens in case of alkynes. So this is in case of aromatic rings. So you can see it here, one which is in the outside area, that is getting de-shielded because they are in the direction of the applied magnetic field. So this is what happens, alkenes, alkynes and aromatic compounds. In case of aromatic compound, H plus is de-shielded, alkenes de-shielded, here it is shielded. And in case of carbonyl also, H plus is de-shielded, so it goes downfield 9 to 10. So if you haven't seen it earlier, this is the scale of proton NMR. Please remember this is very important because you have to remember which proton comes at what position. So these are delta ppm, that is chemical shift, which are in this axis, and this is the intensity. You will get peaks, different peaks. Notice this, benzoic acid or any acid proton will come around 11, aldehyde proton comes 9.2, 9.3 up to 10, aromatic protons come 7 to 8, and double bond proton will come at 5.5 usually, and one which halide to oxygen X and all comes at around 4, and the benzyl protons and attached to nitrogen sulfur comes 2 to 3, and again alkyne protons come also in the same region, and even ketone protons, so one attached to allyl protons, they all come in this region. OH and NH they vary, usually phenolic comes somewhere at 8, 9, and that's all. These are some of the important proton NMR which you should remember. You should know equivalent and non-equivalent protons, because only equivalent protons will give same signal, and non-equivalent protons, set of non-equivalent protons will give different signal in NMR. So what are equivalent protons? Equivalent protons are those which have all the similar characteristics. Okay, all the characteristics are similar. Are protons that are in the same environment, and they must be in identical everywhere. They experience the same magnetic force, and therefore will create overlapping signal on the spectrum. They give the same signal. See benzene, if you look at benzene, how many protons are there here? So 6 protons. So you keep benzene like this or like this, whichever way you can keep, all protons are equivalent. Okay, I can explain it here, chemically equivalent and non-equivalent protons. You can see in case of benzene ring, this is ChemDraw, I am using a software. All protons are same, correct? all 6 protons, they are same. So there is no change as such. Because you keep benzene ring anyway, you find same protons, correct? But in case of toluene, see here, these 3 protons are one type, and there are 2 ortho protons here, and these 2 protons are one type, and this proton is one type. So there are totally 4 types of protons, 4 equivalent protons, correct? What about this here? Paratoluene, this is one type and this is also same type. And what about this? These 2 are same, and this also same, because you see there is no change. Okay, so A, B, there are 2 sets of protons, so you will get 2 peaks. These 4 will come at one place, these 2 will come at one place. Same thing here, so this is one type, again this is also same, correct? And this will be ortho to this, and see, again this is also same. So 3 sets of equivalent proton, you will get 3 peaks in NMR. So these 2 will come at one place, these 2 will come at one place, these 2 will come at one place. And that's all I wanted to explain, equivalent and non-equivalent protons. Then there is something called coupling. Okay, coupling over spin spleen fitting in proton NMR. So if we cannot understand at BSc level, hopefully in MSc, this is an elaborated study you will be having. Surely you will be able to understand. But at this stage, what is chemical shift? What are the factors which affect the chemical shift, and how they scale, and what are the protons which come at different ppm, and this equivalent and non-equivalent protons, and the splitting you should know. These are fundamentals, very much basic. Unfortunately, I cannot explain you very well because this explanation needs time. Okay, please go through more YouTube videos. So see here, in the case of 1,1-dichloroethane, okay, you can see there are 2 sets of equivalent protons or 2 non-equivalent protons. These 3 protons are one type, this proton is one type. So basically you should get 2 peaks. But what happens in NMR, there is something called splitting. So the neighboring one will split here. Only this much you remember. There is of course a long range coupling. Long range will also couple and split. And again in 3D manner they couple in space. That's a different issue. You don't have it in BSc. But at BSc level, you should know that the neighboring protons will couple. See here, this proton is now it's coming here. This proton which is coming here is split. This proton, these 3 protons have come here, again they have split. So this is split by this, and this is split by this. And how the splitting pattern happens? This proton, see it here, there is one non-equivalent, there are 2 non-equivalent protons here, sets of. These 3 equivalent protons are split by this proton. How many protons are here? 1 proton. So these 3 protons are split into 2. Okay, this is this. And this proton is split by this 3 plus 1, which is 4. It's very easy. So there is something called n plus 1 rule. Okay, and why it happens? Because they have different orientation. If there is one proton system, you can see it here, there are 2 possible orientation. One is up, one is down. Now it will be having one up and one down. One will increase the field, one will decrease the field. That's why it will split the neighbor into 2. So you have seen here, it will split this neighbor. It has split this proton, has split this proton. This proton has split this neighbor, this proton into 2. How? One will increase, that is, one has increased here, one is decreased. One with a higher delta ppm, one with a lower delta ppm. Similarly, this will split this into 4. Why? See here, there are different combinations which is possible if there are 3 protons. So in one case, all will be all up. In another case, 2 up, 2 down. In another case, 1 up, 2 down, and all down. These are the 3 possible orientation which is possible. So similarly, to split this into 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And these 2 are equal. That's why this height is also equal. You can see almost equal. And these last 2 height are also almost equal. There will be variation, one will be up, one will be down. That explanation you will study at higher standards. Okay, if there are two protons, it will split the neighbor into three. Okay, there is something called n+1 rule. So this is how the quartet looks like for 3 proton system. It will split the neighbor into 4. So this is how the quartet. If it is 4, then it is quartet. If it is split into 2, then it is doublet. If it has split into 3, then it is triplet. If there is no splitting, then it is singlet. So spin splitting, singlet, doublet, triplet, quartet, quintet, sextet, heptet, based on number of peaks. If there is no splitting, singlet. If it has split into 2, then remember doublet will show 2 equal heights, triplet 1 up, 1 down, this. So this is how Pascal's triangle. Pascal's triangle. This is what you get. If a signal is split by n equivalent proton, it is split into n+1 peaks. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see here 1 singlet, it will be 1, 2 doublet, 1+1, 3 triplet, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, like that. If a signal is split by n equivalent protons, it is split into n+1 peaks. Okay, if there are 2 protons in the neighbor, then this particular one will be split into 3. Then there is something called J value. J value is the distance between these two peaks. I mean the triplet, distance between this and this. Quartet, distance between any two consecutive peaks. Okay, but to calculate J value, delta of this minus this or this minus this into frequency of the instrument you have to do. Now splitting, that's what n+1 rule. So it may be asked in the University of Mysore board examination. That can just to draw how many signals you will get after splitting. See, you have to look for the neighbors. Now this one is split by this into doublet. Now this one is split by this into quartet, because 3+1 for this, 1+2 for this. Again here, this is split by this, so 3+1 4. So and this is split by this, 2+1 3. Okay, here this is split by this. So how it is 2+1 3, and this is split by this, so 3+1 4. And in this case, this CH2 they are equivalent. First you have to see how many non-equivalent protons. Only non-equivalent protons will split each other. So this and this are equivalent, and so that's why these two are equivalent proton and this one is equivalent proton. So these 4 protons together is split by this one into doublet, and this is split into quintet. This one will split into quintet by this. So this is in summary how the splitting appears. Okay, this will appear as a singlet because there is no neighboring proton here. There has to be a proton in the neighboring carbon. Okay, because this is carbonyl, there is no proton here. This is not split by anyone. Now these two again, it is not split because there is no proton here. These two again, it is not split because there are no protons in the neighboring carbon. Again these also, so they cannot be splitting. So all will appear as singlet. And if you come to this one, CH3COs, CH2, CH3, now this will appear as a singlet. Okay, CH3. So where it has come here, HA. So this is one set of proton, equivalent proton. And these two will split each other. Okay, this HP one type, HC this one type. Okay, these three is split into triplet because of 2 protons here. So where it is, it's here. Okay, now which will come downfield and which will come upfield, how will you predict? The one which is closer to electron withdrawing will come downfield. One which is electron donating group, which is having, will come upfield. So now out of these 3, see 3 protons here, 2 protons and 3 protons here. See, this one is most shielded. Okay, because here this is attached to carbonyl, electron withdrawing. So this will come bit downfield. If you take CH2 of this, it is attached to oxygen. It will come further downfield. Okay, and this CH3, which is not attached to any electron withdrawing, that will come most upfield. So this CH3 has come here. It is split into triplet because of these 2 protons, and this HA, so which is next to CO, has come next. So which is appearing as singlet, and this one, that is Hp, which is coming most downfield because of this oxygen. Now it is appearing as quartet because of 3 protons here. So you can explain this one, similar one. You can see which is coming because by looking at the structure you should be able to predict which is coming most upfield, which is coming downfield. So here again, this is most upfield because highly sheeted, and these two are attached to carbon a little bit. So this will come more downfield. Then comes this. Then comes this. So like that. Coupling constant J value, if the two are split by each other, then they will be having the same J value. Now these three are split by this, these two are split by this. Now both of them will be having the same J value. So these are some of the references. Please go through more videos. Read Pavia book. There are very interesting problems. Please solve that. By looking at any structure, you should be able to predict where exactly that NMR value comes. Okay, at what range of delta ppm or chemical shift, and what will be the splitting pattern, like doublet, triplet, multiplet, which way you will get the splitting pattern. These two are very important things which you should learn from this session. Okay, thank you very much.